Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our academic writing and research course. Today, we're going to be talking about giving a presentation at a conference, and we're going to be focusing on the introduction of our presentation. So we're going to look at a model of a simple presentation that you might give at work or you might give at school, and we're going to talk about how we can adapt that to fit our conference presentation, because it's not all that different. We just need to change a few parts. So we're going to be going over all the different parts of a presentation, but today we're going to focus on the introduction and we're going to talk a little bit about body language. So I want you to think about some of the presentations that you have to give, and I want you to think about how they're different than the conference presentations that either you've given or you're going to have to give when you complete your research. So you'll find that the setting is different, but a lot of things are really the same. And also take some time and think about what your concerns are when you present. Are you more concerned about staying calm and not getting nervous in front of a big audience, an audience of scholars? Or are you more concerned with presenting your research? Are you worried about follow-up questions? So we're going to talk about all those things throughout this series of videos, but today we're going to focus just on our introduction. So I want you to think about a topic that you're interested in presenting on, because we're going to work through this together in our video. Now, if you've already done your research, it could be your research. It could be a country that you visited or you really want to visit. You could simply explain how to do something like how to stay healthy, how to prepare an effective study schedule, basically any topic you want. So let's think about the three parts of a presentation. Now, if you've followed my videos before, you know that for academic essays, we break our essays down into three main parts, and it's the same for our presentations. There's an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And we're going to break each of those apart to make it really simple for you. Okay, so I want you to think about what your introduction might include. Now, a lot of the features of our introduction are really similar to the features of the introduction in an academic essay. So we want to engage and welcome the audience. We want to hopefully hook them, just like we hook our readers in our academic essay. We're going to introduce the topic. We're going to outline our presentation. Now, again, these are all things that you would find in the introductory paragraph of a good academic essay. You're going to introduce the topic, and you're going to provide a roadmap or a thesis map for your audience. You're going to do the same thing in your introduction for your presentation. You're going to present the big points that you're going to cover in your body, the body of your presentation. One thing that's different is you want to lay out rules about questions, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. So engage your audience, hook your audience. You need to come out with a strong statement. Some people like to engage the audience right from the start by asking a question. I think if you know your audience, I think that's fantastic. If you're doing a workshop at a conference, that might be a great way to bring the audience in right away. I might not engage the audience with a question at a conference presentation where you're presenting your research. I think that might not be appropriate, but I would start with a strong statistic or a startling fact. If you're going to use a question, I might use a rhetorical question. And here we've got some answers, or some examples. Nearly 40% of adults in America suffer from obesity. Have you been thinking about improving your health? Or the time for good health is now. Now, I think we could imagine any of these sentences as the first sentence of our introductory paragraph in an academic essay, and they fit really well as the first sentence of our presentation. And you also want to introduce yourself. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. My name is. You also want to include any institutional affiliation. This likely will already be on the conference program, because when you've submitted your proposal, you've had to include your institutional affiliation. You want to include this when you introduce yourself to your audience. What are you going to be discussing? right? So today I'm going to talk about the benefits of staying healthy. Maybe you're talking about a trip that you've taken, all the wonderful things to see and do in Vietnam, or sharing strategies for your English exam, right? Just like we want to let our audience know right away in our academic essay, what is it that we're talking about? We want to be direct. Remember, English academic writing is direct. The same thing applies when we're giving a talk. We want to introduce our topic right away so our audience knows where are we going with this. First, what are we talking about and where are we taking it? What are you going to cover? Right? So you're going to think about three big points, hopefully at least in your essay or in your presentation, perhaps more. Okay, these benefits include reduced risk for disease, more energy, and greater self-confidence. So right there, those are the three big points that I'm going to cover in my body, and I'm going to include more details when I get to the body of my presentation. Just like an academic essay, reduced risk for disease, that would be my topic sentence. And that would be the topic of my first paragraph. All the sentences that follow would be supporting details. Okay, so here they're going to be the big ideas in our presentation. And I've got some more examples here about the other two topics that I mentioned, a trip to Vietnam and then the strategies for English exam preparation. Rules for questions. This is really important. Most likely, if you're giving a conference presentation, you're going to tell people to hold their questions until the end. If you're doing a workshop, you might encourage the audience to ask questions as they have them. This is up to you, and it's also based on what the format that conference prefers. But almost always, you're going to ask them to hold questions until the end. You can say, do feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. But if you want them to hold questions till the end, you might say, I'll try to answer all of your questions after the presentation. Or I plan to keep some time for questions after the presentation. Normally, your presentation slot is going to be 15 minutes if you're doing just a research presentation. And again, it depends on the conference. If you've got a 15-minute time slot for your presentation, you might have a 10 to 12-minute window to give your presentation, and then you've got 3 to 5 minutes for questions. So that's usually pretty concrete, and that's established by the conference. So you're going to present these rules to your audience based on what the conference wants you to do. So here we've got a brief example. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. So that's how that speaker is hooking the audience. Hello, everyone. My name is John Smith. I'm here today to talk to you about sound strategies for English exam preparation. In order to prepare effectively, you should find a suitable environment, take good notes, and be well rested before the exam. Do feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. So you can see that John here, he hit all these main points that are supposed to be included in an introduction. If John was giving a conference presentation, he would want to include his affiliation here. So conference presentations largely follow the same structure. You're going to hook your audience, you're going to introduce yourself and your topic, and you're going to include your affiliation when you introduce yourself. You're going to talk briefly about the significance of your topic. You're going to outline the big points in your body. Now, if you're giving a conference presentation where you're presenting your research, this is easy because it's largely going to follow the structure of a research proposal or a research study. You're going to present your research questions or the aim of your study. You're going to present your methods, and you're going to present your findings and your discussion in your body. And then, of course, you're going to present your rules for questioning. So I want you to take a moment and think about that topic that I told you to choose. Okay, now it could be your research, it could be something else. And I want you to think about how you're going to map out each of those big ideas. Okay, well, so here we go. We've got our hook, introduce yourself, your topic, outline your speech, and then your rules for questioning. So you can pause the video, and I want you to come up with those 5 components of your introduction. Okay, so now hopefully you've chosen a topic and you've been able to come up with those key components of your introduction. Now, I want to talk a little bit about body language for our presentation. This is really important because what we say with our body is almost and sometimes just as important as what we say with our words. So here, this person is a little defensive. I like this word defiant. They're certainly not someone who's engaging the audience. We, of course, don't want to do that. We want to be welcoming. We want to build rapport with the audience. And just as we can build rapport with what we say, we can build rapport based on how we present ourselves physically to our audience. This person, this is the person I hate the most at conferences. This person is very arrogant and very superior. Bear in mind that you are an expert in your field. You've spent a long time researching that, but the path to knowledge creation is based on knowledge sharing, right? And we all grow and learn together, right? So present your findings and be open to constructive criticism. Particularly if you're doing your dissertation defense, you don't want to get knocked off your position very quickly. You do want to be confident, but you want to be confident without being arrogant. Don't fidget. We don't want somebody who's always playing with our buttons or fixing our hair or adjusting our glasses. I know it's something that people commonly do when they're a little bit nervous. And of course, when we're in a room filled with people and we've got to give a conference presentation, it's very easy to get nervous, but we do want to avoid those fixations with touching jewelry, touching buttons, moving our hair. It's distracting. And it distracts from our confidence. Stressed, of course, we're likely to be going into our presentation perhaps a bit stressed. Maybe we didn't sleep so well the night before. Get your caffeine, not too much, but make sure that you appear as calm and confident as possible. We do want to seem interested. We want to seem engaged. This is particularly important when we're fielding questions from our audience. The last thing you want to do is, if someone is asking a question, to look as though you're standoffish and you're put off by the question. Try and validate everyone's questions, everyone's comments. And as I said, we all learn and grow together. So be interested and engaged in what they have to say. I think this is really important. Being sincere, having an open palm is a sign of sincerity. And another thing is our hands. We want to keep our hands. I move my hands a lot when I talk, and I think it's good. It's to be a little bit animated. We don't want our hands up here. Try and keep your hands down below your shoulders, closer to your body. And open hands are a sign of sincerity. We don't want to have those clenched fists unless we're really trying to make a point. So think about your posture, your gestures, eye contact with the audience, right? You don't want to stare at one person the whole time, but you do want to maintain eye contact and move from different audience members to different audience members. Also, as far as your voice, it's okay to modulate your voice. That's a great way to keep your audience engaged. When we lower our voice and we raise our voice, you don't want to scream and you don't want to whisper, but you can modulate the volume of your voice. A good rule of thumb is speak to the last row of the audience. This is particularly important if you're in a situation where you don't have a working microphone. You want to make sure that everyone can hear you. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me for our first presentation on effective introductions. Do remember to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. And in our next video, we'll talk a little bit more about the body of our presentation.